Okay, Works of Love. We're on part 2, chapter 4. Love seeks not its own. And this one starts with a quote with 1 Corinthians 13:5. Charity seeketh not her own. And yeah, that word charity is commonly translated as love. So yeah, love seeks not her own. God alone is intrinsically capable of seeking love and being himself the object, without, nevertheless, seeking his own. But no human being is love. Therefore, if a man seeks to become the object of another person's love, he deliberately and falsely seeks his own. For the only true object of a human being's love is love which is God, who therefore, in a deeper sense, is not an object at all, since he is himself love. Whenever a human being seeks to be loved, they are acting out of selfishness. When God seeks to be loved, it is because he wants us to be like himself in perfection, and he seeks love by giving everything, as Christ did in complete sacrifice. This is fundamentally different than when a mortal seeks to be loved to gratify their vanity. Love seeks not its own. For in love there is no mine and yours, but mine and yours are only relational qualifications of, quote, one's own. Consequently, if there is no mine or yours, there is no one's own either. But if there is no one's own, it is indeed impossible to seek one's own. Justice is recognizable in that it gives to each his own, just as each requires its own in return. This means that justice is concerned with what is one's own. It partitions and divides. It determines what each one has the right to call his own. It judges and punishes if anyone does not make the distinction between mine and yours. The deeper the revolution, the more the distinction between mine and yours disappears. The more perfect is the love. So yeah, he's going to talk about how love reforms how it revolutionizes our idea of justice. He says the deeper the revolution that love carries out in someone, the more the distinction between mine and yours disappears, and the more perfect is the love. Love's perfection consists essentially in not revealing the initial and continuing distinction between mine and yours, hidden at the base. Therefore, it consists essentially in the depth of the revolution. The deeper the revolution is, the more justice shudders. The deeper the revolution is, the more perfect is the love. When there is true love between people, there is no distinction between what belongs to one or what belongs to the other. So when true love is present, it is impossible to seek one's own. The more profoundly one has been reformed by love, the less they will seek justice, and the more they will lose the distinction between what belongs to them and what belongs to someone else. Let us first try to take away completely the distinction yours from the distinction mine and yours. What do we have then? We have crime, offense. For the thief, the robber, the seducer, and the bandit recognize no yours at all in the distinction mine and yours. But precisely for this reason, the distinction mine also disappears completely for him. Even if he does not understand this, even if he hardens himself against this understanding, justice understands that a criminal essentially has no mine. As a criminal, He is set outside this distinction. And this is so in another way. For the richer the criminal becomes through the stolen yours, the less mine he has. Now take away completely the distinction mine from the distinction mine and yours. What do we have? Then we have the sacrificing one who renounces himself in all things. We have true love. But at the same time, the category yours completely disappears, which is something for reflection to understand, even if for a moment it seems to be a bewildering thought. Consequently, everything becomes the true lover's. As Paul says, quote, all things are yours. In the mysterious understanding of blessedness, everything becomes his, belongs to him, who had no mine, who in self-renunciation made all of his yours. Let me read that again. So he's talking about like the true Christian who sacrifices everything. He has no mine. He's renounced his own and everything. And Paul talks about how the true Christian, all things belong to them. He says all things are yours. And Kierkegaard's explaining that. In the mysterious understanding of blessedness, everything becomes his. Belongs to him who had no mine, who in self-renunciation made all of his yours. God is indeed everything, and precisely by having no mine at all, self-renunciation's love wins God and wins everything. For he who loses his soul shall win it. And that's something Christ said. Only spiritual love has the courage to will to have no mine at all. The courage to abolish completely the distinction between mine and yours. And therefore it wins God by losing its soul. And yeah, Christ said, he who loses his soul shall gain it. And it's sometimes translated life, like he who loses his life shall gain it. But, Kierkegaard's using the translation of, instead of life, soul. Yeah, he wins God by losing its soul, by losing its life. The criminal chooses to ignore the distinction between what is theirs and what is someone else's. When they disregard what is someone else's, they at the same time give up any claim to what is theirs. This is justice, exemplified in the law, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. With the truly loving person, the same principle applies. By renouncing everything that is theirs, they gain everything. By losing one's soul, as Jesus would say, one finds it. This takes place because by giving up everything, one finds God and thereby gains everything. The true lover understands only one thing: to be fooled, to be deceived, to give away everything without the slightest return. This is what it means not to seek one's own. Love seeks not its own, for the true lover does not love his own individuality. He rather loves each human being according to the other's individuality. But for the other person, his own individuality is precisely his own, and consequently the lover does not seek his own. Quite the opposite. In others, he loves their own. Here he understands the Apostle Paul's statement that love seeks not its own as saying that the one who loves does not seek their own individuality or their own particularity. What would we describe as being, quote, our own? It is our possessions, yes, but in a broader sense, it is our overall subjective individual disposition. And the one who does not seek this does not make their own individuality the standard by which others are judged, as if they were to tyrannically make everyone like themselves. Suppose that nature were like us human beings, strong, domineering, cold, partisan, narrow, capricious, and imagine, just imagine, what would happen to the beauty of the fields. Yeah, I mean he says that after a little paragraph of talking about how nature's beautiful because of the uniqueness of absolutely every little thing, like how each whether it's like every single flower has some sort of uniqueness to it, and he's saying that's what actually makes it beautiful, and how dead and cold it would be if nature was like us, strong, domineering, cold, partisan, narrow, capricious. He says all the beauty of nature would vanish. Only true love loves every man according to his own individuality. The strong, the domineering person lacks flexibility, and he lacks a sense of awareness of others. He demands his own with everyone. He wills that everyone shall be recreated in his image, be trimmed according to his pattern for human beings. The people of the world predictably separate themselves into groups based on what are mostly superficial categories. And we are always so eager to make others conform to our perspectives and ambitions. But while there is only one way to God, and only one solution to the problem of mankind's corruption, for the multifarious perspectives on this subject substantially contradict one another, so they cannot all be true. In regard to less certain and less important matters, we are not to hold so tightly to what we value at the expense of others. And to do this is loving. Whether the strong and domineering individual is allotted a great sphere of activity or a small one, whether he is a tyrant in an empire or a house tyrant in a little attic room, the essence is the same. Domineeringly unwilling to go out of oneself, domineeringly wanting to crush the other person's individuality or make life miserable for him. Yeah, and then he talks about someone who's considered by the world insignificant. He says if that person has the courage to be himself before God, he has authentic individuality. The small-minded individual has never had the courage of this God-pleasing venturesomeness of humility and pride before God to be oneself. For the accent rests upon before God, since this is the source and origin of all individuality. He who has dared to do this has authentic individuality and has come to know what God has already given to him. In the same sense, he believes completely in the individuality of every single person. To have individuality is to believe in the individuality of every other person. For individuality is not mine, but it is God's gift by which he gives me being and gives being to all, gives being to everything. The tyrannical person, and anyone can be this, no matter how insignificant the realm is they seek to rule over, is small-minded and cannot endure that others should be different than themselves. The person who is sincere before God attains true individuality, because individuality comes from God. The true individual also believes in the uniqueness of others and is not afraid of their uniqueness. The small-minded Pharisaical mind cannot endure deviation from what they believe is the true path. But how much of their supposed concern is actually concern about another's soul? Is it not rather a concern for their position and being seen as being right? When you see the never-ending debates about religion and philosophy, how much of it is actually concern for someone's soul or motivated by the concern for humanity in general? Is it not almost always a prideful battle for preeminence? And anyone who's actually concerned for the well-being of others knows that while they might have an obligation to speak the truth to them, ultimately they are not responsible for their salvation. So all of this zealous authoritarianism to force people into what they believe is the true path is really just vanity and a desire to convince others so that they can assure themselves that they are correct. And I just have a quote there of Galatians 6:13. Sometimes people do this because they believe they're doing a good religious work before God. Like this, all this debating and quarreling about doctrine. So yeah, sometimes people do this because they believe they're doing a good religious work before God. But this has to be tempered with the humility that comes from being truly objective with the material in question. Because the more objective someone is, the more they will see that you cannot come to conclusions based on mere objectivity. The more we seek objectivity, the more the honest person will see that it is impossible and only brings about more questions. Small-mindedness, which is assumed being, has no individuality. That is, it has not believed in its own and therefore cannot believe in anyone's. Small-mindedness has fastened itself tightly to a very particular shape and form which it calls its own. Only this does it seek. Only this can it love. If small-mindedness finds this, then it loves. Thereby, small-mindedness sticks together with small-mindedness. Yeah, he says it's assumed being. This small-mindedness that despises individuality in others. People who are not individuals get their being from someone else, and they make this the ideal by which they judge others. Yeah, and they just want to conform everyone to that ideal image that they see. Whether, I think it's most of the time it's found like in someone else or a certain group that is idealized. And they make that the standard, not accepting the individuality of others. Just because small-mindedness is assumed being, and consequently untruth, just because it has never in openness and on the deepest level had anything to do with God, but faint-heartedly has made a mess of itself and falsified God, precisely for this reason it has a bad conscience. For the one who has individuality, another person's individuality is no refutation, but rather a confirmation or one more proof. It cannot disturb him to be shown, as he believes, that everyone has individuality. But for small-mindedness, every individuality is a refutation. It feels therefore a damp, unpleasant anxiety upon observing another person's individuality, and nothing is more important than to get rid of it. Small-mindedness demands of God, as it were, that every such individual characteristic be destroyed, so that it can appear that small-mindedness is right, and that God is a zealous God, zealous for small-mindedness. The small-minded person who has contempt for the individuality of others has not really been sincere before God, or really wanted anything to do with God. They might think they have, but they have not yet become a serious person before God. Love seeks not its own, for it rather gives in such a way that the gift appears as if it were the receiver's possession. The greatest benefaction cannot be accomplished in any way whereby the recipient gets to know that he is indebted. For if he gets to know this, it is excluded, precisely by this, from being the greatest benefaction. The highest that one human being can do for another is to make him free, to help him stand alone. The way we can best love another person is to help them become free by standing alone with and loving God, which is also how they become an individual. But to do this in the right way, the one who is helped must not know that they are being helped or that they are indebted to the one who helps them. In order to do this, we must work in a way that Kierkegaard calls disinterestedly, the way Socrates helped those he debated with. Socrates aided people in coming to conclusions on their own by merely asking questions, but this can be painful for people at times, as Socrates said that sometimes men would become so angry at him that they wanted to bite him whenever he would deprive them of his stupidity. To be hated for their charitable deed of disabusing people of their foolishness, and yet to continue on, is to work disinterestedly for the good of others. You might never receive any reward except suffering for your labors, but these labors have eternal value as they are directed towards what is right. Yeah, and here he's going to talk about Socrates and how he called himself a midwife. He was, as he called himself, a midwife in a spiritual sense, and with every sacrifice he worked disinterestedly in this service. For the disinterestedness consisted simply in keeping hidden from the one helped how and that he was helped. Yeah, he's saying Socrates was helping people, but it was hidden from the people who he helped. A lot of times he was offending them, and they were, he was persecuted and eventually put to death. And so he's saying this is the work disinterestedly. You stand by and you proclaim the truth, regardless of the results. And that is to be disinterestedly working for the truth. Yeah, and he's just talking about how Socrates was regarded and how they hated him. And they hated him since they regarded strengthening them in their folly as love. What wonder then that they were incensed when anyone wanted to take that away from them, their greatest treasure. He's saying their folly is their greatest treasure. So it's not a surprise that they hated Socrates when he was trying to enlighten them and take that foolishness away from them. As it is every human being's essential destiny to become free, independent, to become himself. If the lover in this respect has been God's co-laborer, everything has then become as it was according to the essential destiny. If it is discerned that the lover has assisted, the relationship is disturbed, or the helper has not assisted in love, and the lover has not helped properly. If what he had accomplished could be seen directly, he would have labored less in love. The more we labor for others in genuine love, the less will our efforts be acknowledged in a world that is opposed to truth. The honest person will not hold back the truth from others because he actually cares about them. But this is not what the world desires. The world desires what it desires and generally does not care if it is based in truth or not. Is then the life of the lover wasted? Has he lived entirely in vain, since there is nothing, absolutely nothing, which witnesses to his work? Answer: is not seeking one's own the wasting of one's life? No, in truth, this life is not wasted. This the lover knows in blessed joy in himself and with God. In a certain sense, his life is completely squandered on existence, on the existence of others, without wishing to waste any time or any power on elevating himself. on being somebody. In self-sacrifice, he is willing to perish. That is, he is completely and wholly transformed into being simply an active power in the hands of God. This is why his labors cannot become apparent. His labor consists simply in this: to aid one or another human being to become his own, which in a certain sense they were on the way to becoming. But when one through another's help really has become his own, it is quite impossible to detect the help of the other. For if I see the other's help, then I really see that the one helped has not become his own.